Well, it says that we're live on air. Fantastic. I'm never quite sure with these Hangouts when the live actually starts, when you watch the replay afterwards, when it's at. But anyway, today, that was Tyler Thurman, who I'm speaking with today, and this is Julian Freeman from the Stars of Wellbeing. Delighted to be with you all again. I'm in North Yorkshire, where I'm sitting behind 2 feet of stone wall, and it's only 20 degrees centigrade out there, so it's like 70. And Tyler's sitting in, what is it, an air-conditioned room in Albuquerque?
Yeah, that's correct.
And it's already almost 80 degrees there.
That's right. Yep. We're in the desert here.
This is England's green and pleasant land here. I tell you. There's a bit of contrast to start the conversation. Now, I'm going to change what I do at this point, because normally I ask people to email in questions, and I think I'm going to change that and go, oh, don't send any questions in. You're not allowed. Because maybe if I say that, somebody will actually ask one. What do you think?
I think it could work.
It could work.
I like it.
If you are inspired to ask a question, Julian at starsofwellbeing.com, just email it in. I won't be looking at it. Well, I will. But it'll be far too late, because we're going to have such a great conversation that you won't be worrying about the question. Well, you might. I don't know. We'll see. So I found Tyler on YouTube, that wonderful medium. And Tyler, you have some cracking videos there that you talk about various aspects of the inside-out understanding. And I just couldn't. See, I love doing these conversations, but I don't know that I could just sit there for as long as you do in those videos and talk so coherently about the subject you're talking. It's great. It's fantastic. How do you do it?
Well, I'm glad you think it's coherent, because I always am not quite sure. But no, I kind of fell in love with doing sort of video lectures. I don't know. I think it's a fun medium for people to get to see and hear me just kind of talk without any script, just from my own wisdom and understanding about, what we call this inside-out understanding behind life. And or the 3 principles. Sometimes we talk about it like that, but I took to it for some reason. I just sit there and stuff comes to me about the nature of the human experience that other people seem to find valuable. So I love it, and I'm glad that other people have kind of gravitated towards it too.
Because when I watch your videos, they're amazingly polished, and they just seem like, wow, he's really got, how did he come up with all this material? And you're and you know what? The second thing about that was that that was why I was kind of inspired to go, oh, so living from wisdom, which is my journey and my kind of area of focus, I guess, is I was like, I need to connect with this guy because there's something here. So are you telling me that all of those videos are done like in the moment?
They are. I actually started out trying to do it with scripts and notes, kind of the way I used to do things back in the day. You could sound very sort of intelligent and competent, I think, but for me there was something missing when I would sort of watch myself back. It was very intellectual, and I missed an opportunity, or I was missing an opportunities to have something new and fresh come through me in the moment when I did that. And then I actually just kind of started playing around with, like I say, unscripted, live wisdom broadcasting on video, and I just kind of fell in love with that, and other people started to resonate with it too. So yeah, there's no notes, no nothing. It's me and the divine mind, I think, is really mostly what's coming through, and seems to be pretty cool.
So, not wishing to plug you this early in the program, but how do people go and find those videos, the ones that we're talking about now?
So the best way to kind of see everything that I'm up to is my website/blog at www.coachtylerthurman.blogspot.com, and that's kind of the best way to find my latest posts, and all the videos are posted there, and I do written articles as well. So that's kind of my online playground, if you will.
Nice. So I really love those videos, and one of the other things that I'm inspired to do right now is that a lot of, like this hangout here, a lot of people are trying to get all the big names, and I think you end up, if you're not careful, and not wishing to sound critical, because Elsie Spittle is amazing however many times you see it. Dick and Bettinger is amazing however many times. But there are a whole bunch of people out there that, like you and me, who also have some fantastic access to wisdom. I mean, let's face it. If my understanding of wisdom and the principles is that everybody has the same genius built in, you know. So
yeah.
So the key thing for me is the thing I'm inspired to do is to find the people that aren't on the beaten track, and because I think that would be more interesting for everybody out there. And I thought you were interesting, Tyler. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on. I love your hangouts.
Well, I think it's funny, you know. I wonder whether some people, when watching these hangouts that know me in real life, would go, but Julian's much more serious than this when he's in, you know, he's got a, my erstwhile partner would take her fingers and kind of try and stretch my forehead out here because I'm so often got a frown on it. And that's an interesting, when I get on these hangouts and get into this conversation, look, no frown, look.
I love it. It's brilliant.
And I tell you what, I just spent the weekend doing a thing. You're coming back to your dropping the script and you know, the polished presentation. I just did a thing at the weekend where I was trying to go for the Elsie Spittle type approach, you know, just connect with the audience. You know, she does a fantastic, amazing job of saying very little, but yet connecting so deeply with people.
Right.
That I was like, I'd love to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think words can they can be messy, and they can get in the way of our sort of connection with one another. But
when you're doing your videos, I really get the connection from your video, and I think that's the difference between being in the moment and seeing what's there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's you know, I notice it when I listen and watch and am in conversation with other people. It's you can tell when people are distracted, or they're just, you know, maybe trying to remember what they already know, and all of that seems to kind of get in the way of this beautiful connection that's always there between all of us. We just don't notice it all that often.
Why do you think that is?
That we don't notice it?
Yeah.
I think, you know, this is my best guess, right? It's not like cosmic knowledge, but it's hard to see the invisible when there's so much of the world of form around us to distract us. So the form of other people's bodies, the form of the stuff that we're interested in, the form of, you know, the internet, for instance. You know, there's infinite forms of content that you can sift through, and there's just so much to see, and that's wonderful too. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's it's so much easier to look in that direction, in the direction of what's visible with our physical eyes, and miss sort of what's behind it. You know, what's before the form, as I talk about it sometimes, which is these formless principles behind life that that are kind of making up the form. They're, you know, the form is downline, but it's so much easier to see. It's so much easier to see, and so I think it's as simple as that. And maybe added on that we live in a society, a world society that has gotten pretty good at pointing outside ourselves to try to locate our well-being and our connection.
Great answer. Over millennia too. Over millennia. It's a misunderstanding that's been going on for so long.
Yeah.
So long.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's by the way, these principles, you know, Sydney Banks may have been the first person to use the particular language that we use now, but they've been talked about for centuries too, right?
Well, he always talks about it being in every religion,
Yep.
the same stuff built in.
Absolutely, it's there. It's there to be seen, pretty much everywhere. It's just, again, it's challenging to see sometimes in a world where we're not used to looking there.
As I was listening to you, what you were just saying there about the formless, looking to the formless, or not seeing it so easily. I was kind of, and the form, how much form there is. Something in me kind of went, oh, we ought to talk about the illusion now. We ought to talk about the grand illusion. Because before we started this live part of the call, we touched that, and we touched that in a beautiful way. Can you remember how were the words you used, or can you give me some words? Because you had a great take on the illusion.
Oh, you know what? This is funny because it's happening live. I'm not remembering the exact language I used before, but
even better.
That's right. Yeah, there's something better is going to come through.
Yeah.
But it is. I mean, the way I think about the big illusion is, I think about it in terms of who we are. So what I mean by that is, we're pretty sure that, at least in our society, in our world, that we are the form. Like, we are our bodies. We are even the thoughts that we have.
Oh,
right?
big time.
So even our thoughts take form, right? So there's thought forms. And that is, in my experience, the illusion that we think that's us, but it's not, right? We are this beautiful, non-physical, spiritual, if you will, if you want to use that language, essence. And it is sort of the source of the form, but it's not the form. So we are this beautiful spiritual essence, and we think we're something else, and it causes a great deal of suffering when we identify very heavily with our bodies or the stuff that we have, or the current form that our relationships are taking. And it's very freeing to begin to realize that's all just the current form that this non-physical has taken, and the form will always change. That's something you can count on. But these sort of principles, as we talk about, that's why we talk about them as principles, is because they are unchanging. Thought, before it has taken form, is a principle that is constant. Mind, or God, if you will, is a constant. This life force energy, it's there. It changes forms, but it's there. I'm not sure if I'm speaking to your question, but that's kind of what came to mind.
No, definitely, definitely. And the other thing that flicked up for me there was a thing that I posted, a Garrett Kramer thing, where he talks about that everything is thought created, emotions and actions and so on, all thought created, and the only thing that is true is I'm mangling his quote now, but is love. So if there is some, that's the only thing that's pure. It's the only thing that sits behind. And I think what you're talking about, or what it comes to me in this moment, is that what you're talking about is a kind of totally, people connecting on a totally different level. And if I could call it it's often called like a heart-based level, but if I can call it love, and I suppose love is just another way of talking about mind and that formless energy that connects us all. But if you can sense that, if you can trust, we all know what love is, right? We all know how that feels.
Yeah.
And if you can trust that, and then you end up with this huge ball of form over here, which is so obvious, and you were just talking about thought streams. Well, I call those stories. People have stories. People build up stories, and those stories, it's like that old, their reality. They look at the whole reality through those stories, and then the stories get reinforced even more by what they see happening, and so on. It becomes some hugely, like I used to, when I was getting the principles, it was like, there were some thoughts you could get rid of quite easily and quite quickly. Other ones, it was like they were embedded in your mind with concrete. The stories would just come back and back and back. And I still do that. I still find that when I get lost in my thinking and I start to kind of get some separation from it, I go, oh, it's that one again. I thought I'd got rid of that by now, but clearly not.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, so this big ball of stuff, and on the other hand, there's something that you can listen to all the time that connects you to yourself, and it connects you to everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the language you're using there. It's like it's right out of my own mouth. I think one of the things that I've noticed is it's almost a bit of a misnomer to talk about it as connecting, because we first have to be disconnected in some way to reconnect. And on the most fundamental level, we are all together, that's the whole oneness conversation, right? I know what you mean, right? It feels like we're connecting, but I think if we look even a little bit closer, it's beautiful to begin to see we were never actually gone from that sense of unity that we have with other people. There's a beautiful quote in one of my favorite spiritual texts, A Course in Miracles, that says, "You are at home in God, dreaming of exile." And for me, that's kind of what's going on. We're always, who we are is this beautiful essence, and then we've got this thought thing that we create different experiences of disconnectedness out of. But we're never really gone, which is, for me, a very comforting notion.
Lovely.
Yeah.
It feels like the right time to talk about something, throw this in. But people that might be following me at the moment will have known that I've been going through some challenges the last 3 or 4 weeks. And interestingly enough, I suppose most of it is back to the habitual thinking that we were just talking about, those stories and dropping those, and also about being in connection or not being in connection. Sorry, I'm using that word again. Let me change. So I'd like to just respond to what you're saying.
I don't mean to be the word police. That's not my intention.
I think you're right, and this is an old Michael Neal thing, isn't it? These whole distinctions.
Sure.
What I think, if you think about a radio, like I don't know that many people have them anymore, but a wireless radio set, there's a knob on it, right, with a tuning dial, yeah? So, and what it's doing is there are thousands, the whole world is full of radio waves, yeah? And this receiver, I suppose that's its technical term, you tune it until it hears what you want, till it hears something, right? And that, I think, is what, when I say connection, I think I mean tuning. Because it is always there. The radio waves are always there.
Right.
And
I think that's a beautiful distinction.
And this story is it's not a story, it happened today, it happened, is a perfect example of that. And it comes back to it's also, back to your videos and how you're doing those in the moment. So, and also back talking about the illusion, because the last couple of weeks, one of the things that's not been going well for me is my relationship. And I could say I'm starting to invest in this now, into the story, but it has been a disaster. The last couple of weeks have been a disaster.
Sure.
And this morning, my erstwhile partner was coming around to remove her stuff. And I woke up really early this morning, and I was thinking about how I should show up, how I wanted to show up, how I ought to show up, what would be the best way of dealing with this situation. Because I kind of know I have an outcome that I'm attached to, and like, how could I make that happen?
Right.
And I was getting really, really wound up because I didn't know the answer to that, and any of those questions. I didn't even know how. I didn't have a clue. I was like, anything I do could be wrong.
Right.
It's almost like I'm walking into a no-win situation. That's how it seemed.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And then comes the moment she actually arrives to, and bingo, I was a bit like this. I was upbeat, I was loving, and I helped her pack the stuff, and it was lovely. It was really lovely. And I didn't think about that at all. It was just what showed up for me. It was just what showed up for me. And when we almost got the stuff out to her car, and we stopped to have a glass of water or something, and then something absolutely amazing happened. because we tuned in.
Mm-hmm.
After 2 weeks of throwing the wireless receiver at each other in our own minds,
True.
all of a sudden we just clearly tuned in. And it was, we had an amazing conversation. It was like, hold on a minute, is this the end or is this the beginning?
The beginning of something new, it sounds like.
And the end might be something to do with the stories that we were so attached to outcomes. We have been attached to outcomes.
Yeah, right. You know, I was. Thank you for sharing that and that vulnerable story. I appreciate that. Um, uh, and I think that's a beautiful example of what's available to us in any moment. You know, George Pransky talks about it as a change of heart, right? Um, but I think I was listening to some podcast or something this morning, and it might have been Michael Neal's show actually, and he was talking about most people ask the question, and you touched on this in your story. Most people ask the question, "How should I live?" Um, or in the conversation, "How should I live?" And that's an infinitely complex conversation to be in, and an infinitely, I would say, messy conversation because there's no right answer. So you can get pretty bogged down in that conversation. Like you were saying, how should I show up? You know, how do I behave? It could be wrong. And then there's another conversation about what's true about life. What's true about the human experience. And when you begin to see some of those truths, that second conversation of how should I live, it kind of disappears. It kind of begins to take care of itself. So when you begin to see some of the truths like the form, like I was saying earlier, you can count on the form to change. That's one thing you can predictably and reliably count on. The form of our relationships, the form of our physical bodies, you know, you name it. The form of our thoughts, you can count on those to change. You know, and then you begin to see some truths about, well, maybe I'm not the form. You know, maybe there's something constant about me and beautiful. Like you were saying, love. I love love. I love I love talking about our essence as love because that's as good a word as I can come up with. And for me, that's another kind of truth about the human experience and a constant. And I don't know, just in your words, it kind of brought to mind that it's so easy to get caught up in that conversation, how should I live, and forget about, well, who am I, or what's true about me, or what's true about all of us as human beings, not just the little me. And there's something, you know, I talk about it kind of as foundational, right? There's something actually solid you can begin to build your life on top of in that. Because most people try to build it on top of solid-looking forms, right? Like long-term relationships or my physical health or, you know, anything. And we grab onto that, and it looks like it's not changing, right? Because sometimes it's very subtle over long periods of time, but I can assure you that it is. And it's a new place to come from, in my experience, a new foundation to build on top of these sort of non-physical truths that we talk about as the principles.
I love the idea of that second conversation. I love the idea because the first conversation just sits in the world of form, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's where it lives.
And before I understood and I even knew the principles existed, I lived in that conversation. And I still have a tendency to go back there.
Well, and I was just going to say, that doesn't then mean that we won't experience upset and sorrow, and we won't grieve for the physical changes that we've attached ourselves to. There's nothing wrong with that, and as far as I can tell, we're always going to do that. So you can let yourself off the hook, everyone listening right now. That's not something to get rid of, in my experience. It's something worth just understanding better. That we're going to experience our thoughts about the changing world, and sometimes they're not that pleasant, and that's okay. For me, that was hugely relevant because, and I think it will be for a lot of people, because we've a lot of times in this sort of self-help and go get 'em personal development culture, we've made up that we can't feel those upset feelings, we can't have upset thinking. No, that's part of the experience too. That's part of being a human, is having a lot of variety of thought forms, and some of them don't feel so great. But there's something comforting about being in a storm when you're the sky, that you're the constant shining sun. You're not always seeing it. You're not always experiencing the warmth of the sun, but you kind of know it's there behind the scenes.
And as you were talking about that, we were talking just before we came on air about my book, and my understanding of the principles as it was at the time I laid out the book, and all of those insights that are in the book are still true. I just that I get them at a deeper, at a better level, non-intellectual, less intellectual way now.
Right.
But I think the punchline of the book, and this doesn't mean to say that people out there shouldn't be reading it, because I'd love them to read it, although they don't have to. But the point is that we as human beings, each one of us are constructed, we said destructed, are constructed uniquely, like our DNA or makeup or whatever it is. And then we have this wonderful thing called, universal energy that plays through us, and what comes out is like a tuning fork. It's like a unique note. Like nobody else can play your note the way you play it.
Right.
And the reason why I love the tune, I should change it. Look, I'm a bit of a harmonica player, and when you have harmonicas, like the one downside to having a harmonica is you have to have ones in different keys. You end up with like a whole pile of harmonics. Like, where's that one gone?
Yeah.
But everyone is different. It can't be played another way. The air blows through it, but the music comes out in a different key. And that's us. That's us. Mind, universal energy plays through us, and our tune comes out. And I love that kind of hard wiring thing, because even though if I go back to what you were talking about, the two conversations thing, it means we're always having the second conversation. It means that we're always tuned into the. We always have that access to the radio waves, you know. We
Right.
can always hear that music, and guess what? We're usually taking action on it anyway. I mean, just that a lot of the times it's clouded by the first conversation that we're still always having, and
Sure.
by all those thoughts and feelings that you were talking about that we experience as humans.
Right.
And today the reason why I wanted to mention that story was it was just the most ultimate example for me of when you give up, when you just get to the end of that conversation, and you give up because there's nothing. It's like I just don't know.
Yeah.
Time is coming. The meeting is coming, or whatever the event is, or whatever. I just don't know how to handle it, and you stop trying. I think that's what it was. I think that's why we got tuned in so well today, was because we were in the different conversation. We were in the deeper conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And again, there's nothing wrong with being in both, but you almost certainly will get kind of lost in the conversation of, you know, what do I do? You know, what should I say? You know, where should I go? I think that's a beautiful distinction about wisdom, by the way, is that a lot of people, we think about wisdom in terms of decision making, but I think about wisdom in terms of truth. So what I mean by that is I think what I would describe as my sort of greatest moments of wisdom are when I'm seeing the truth of the human experience more clearly than normal. And then from that place of seeing, well, God, you know, nothing I do is really going to impact my well-being. Nothing I do is going to impact this loving essence that I am. It doesn't matter so much which direction I go in. It doesn't matter so much which choice I make. And from there, it becomes very sort of seamless, and that's what people mean oftentimes when they talk about effortless decision making. You're not even really making decisions. You're just living your life from a different level of understanding. And outside looking in, it looks like, oh, they're making really good decisions. No, not in my experience. That's not how it shows up for me. So I think I at least find that kind of a valuable distinction.
Definitely, definitely. You know, if I hadn't been open today, how would it have gone? If I'd have tried to do something,
Right.
but instead I just gave up effectively, and something perfect came along.
Yeah.
It may not be perfect for the future, but for that meeting this morning, it was perfect.
Yeah. Well, and when I think about relationships, you know, I I boil it down. This is probably an oversimplification, but you know, I think about when we've got, I call them egos, but all it is thought, right? We've got sort of our personal thinking about ourselves and how the world should work, and that's kind of our ego. And we all have them. We all have those thought systems. And when two people get together and we're kind of mostly in those thought systems, the ego, it's messy, it's neurotic, it's insecure, it's you know, every unpleasant experience you can think of. Typically, that's kind of how it tends to go. And then, and this is for any two people. As far as I can tell, I've never seen an exception for this. When two essences get together, two spirits get together, two people who are, you know, they're really, like you said, they've sort of surrendered that ego, at least momentarily. It's beautiful. it's those two loving presences. You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong getting in touch with who you really are, and then hanging out with other people. I mean, that's about as good as it gets. Now, I don't mean to make it sound like that's always the easiest thing to do, but in a way it is, because it's who we really are. It's just beginning to see that. And then as you see it more and more, you just begin to identify with that bigger you more and more, and you identify less with the neurotic, insecure side of yourself, or thoughts that you have about yourself. And yeah, so for me, it sort of levels the playing field, I guess, to know that we've all got egos, and they're all neurotic, and we've all got spirits, and they're all beautiful. And it's a pretty safe bet that if things aren't going well, you're up in your head, like to go back to the other conversation, you're in that first conversation of, how do I live my life? What should this other person be doing? What should I be doing? That's right, this is wrong. If things aren't going well, you're almost certainly in that conversation to some degree.
Nice. Now, here's something that occurs to me around this. Okay, have you ever seen the movie Inception?
I have, yeah.
With Leonardo DiCaprio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where they have to dive in to somebody's dream, and then inside that dream, they have to go like 3 levels in.
Right.
Find the thought that will unlock the piece of information that they want to use, right? That they've been hired to steal. The complexity, one of the complexities I see is that in the way you just described it, which I thought was great, in that ego model, and even with people who get the principles, like me, I've been following that journey now for good 2-3 years. You get this moment where you think you're hearing wisdom, but in actual fact, you've just dropped into another layer of this conversation.
Sure.
And when you said wisdom is not decision making, that big alarm bell went off, or not alarm bell, gong went off in the back of my head, because it was like, yes, so true. So many people, and a lot of people say, I'm waiting for wisdom to, for my wisdom to give me the answer, and it's like, well, first of all, it's not your wisdom,
right? Yeah.
And secondly, that kind of sounds like there's a technique, I'll sit on my rock and meditate for 24 hours until the answer comes.
Yeah, exactly.
To me, it's more, the thing that I experienced today was this moment of giving up, of surrendering to the fact that I just don't know. And I've had quite a lot of those opportunities in the last 3 or 4 weeks to go, I don't know where it goes from here. Not even gonna, I've got a couple of things that are still out there where as they'd say in the legal world, the jury's out. It could become a stunning success, or it could be a fall in a heap, or even worse. And I'm just going to sit here and go, well, it'll be what it'll be. That Rudyard Kipling thing about if you can face triumph and disaster just the same, you'll be a man, my son. That kind of thing.
I like that. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no, I agree. There's something about the unknown that when we really, and I think we were having this conversation actually before the live show. There's something that we try to sort of control, or at least deceive ourselves into thinking that we can know outcomes. We can know the future. We can know how things are going to turn out, how the world of form is going to shape up. What particular form this ever-changing world of form is going to take in a certain moment. To think that we can know that is kind of actually delusional, right? And there's this beautiful freedom in just seeing the truth behind it that we can't know. And once you realize you can't know, and it doesn't even matter, you don't even need to know, because there's this other bit behind the form that's sort of like this warm embrace, right? It's this beautiful, loving presence that will be there regardless of the form. Then, there's a space there. It creates a space for non-regurgitated thought, right? You could even call it divine thought, right? Or an experience of mind that we don't have very often, because we think we can know, so we try to know. And there's something beautiful about not knowing.
Fantastic, Tyler. That's the punchline. There's something beautiful about not knowing. Definitely.
I like it.
And you know what? The wisdom did come to me about something. I used to have an email signature that on the emails I send out to everybody with "Have a great day," exclamation mark, because I thought that was cool. And as a marketer, I've watched other people kind of do one of, Michael Neal's one. What's that? Learn lots, love heaps, or whatever it is. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Which is lovely, and to Jamie Smart's "To Your Effortless Success," and they all seem to have this very professional. and I had just "Have a great day," but it came to me that in this what seems like the storm that I've been in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I just had this thing about trust life, trust love. That's now my email signature, and what you've helped me do in this hangout, which I'm really so grateful for, is I think we have talked about love in an astonishing way. I mean, the way that you just talked about that space, that beautiful space, is kind of the closest I've ever heard it talked about in a way that I really get. So I knew that getting you on a hangout would be special.
I've just really enjoyed this conversation.
Good.
It's been a real pleasure.
Good. Now, if people would like to have a conversation with you, how can they remind me how they can get hold of you?
Sure. So you can find my contact information on my website, my blog at www.coachtylerthurman.blogspot.com. But you could just shoot me an email, coachtylerthurman@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Tyler Thurman Coaching. Just reach out to me. I'm happy to have a conversation. Usually if I've got room in my schedule, I'll make room for at least a complimentary, transformative conversation, just so you can kind of have an experience of what working with me one-on-one would be like, which is kind of, at the moment, how I work with people the most, and it's kind of my favorite medium. So those are a couple different ways you can reach out if you're so inspired.
Cool. I'm sure people will be, and of course, there'll be people that watch this hangout way after the event. So
right.
they'll still, and that's why I love doing these hangouts, because this energy, this what we found in this 45 minutes together,
Yeah.
where I think we got a bit into the second conversation. I hope we did. It wasn't just two egos going, "Oh, that's a great point. Let me see you and raise it."
Yeah, exactly. That could definitely happen.
But I hope people will see that, and the real beauty of these recordings is that they come through. You can watch them later, not even live at all, but you'll see that energy there, because of course you're creating your experience of what you're watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway,
Absolutely.
done now. 5 minutes over time. You can go. It must be coming on lunchtime there. You can go and get your lunch, and I'm going to go and get my dinner.
All right, I really appreciate it, Julian. Thank you so much.
Thank you everybody for watching, and thank you everybody who is going to watch. And I really appreciate your time and your attention, and for just sharing this journey with me and Tyler. Thank you.